All right, well, on this video, we're going to talk about how to search for peer-reviewed primary sources that you'll use for your semester project. You'll become very familiar with the UNLV library webpage. This is the homepage for the library, and if I need to go back, I just go unlv.edu. I can go to find, and I can even just click on the quick link right there, and there we are. So we start on this landing page for the library, and where I want you to go is A to Z list of all databases. Okay, just click on that. And you might even want to have your browser running at the same time. And then we're going to go to M for Medline, and I'm going to scroll down, Web of Science. I'm going to click on that. There are many different search engines for peer-reviewed papers. Just like there's Google, Yahoo, or whatever search engine you may use, and you type in search terms in there and it gives you web pages. For what we do, we use specific search engines that will parse sources where they publish primary peer-reviewed journals. So I use Web of Science a lot. Why? Because back when I started in this area, back in the 90s, this was a book. Medline was a big encyclopedia, a big list of journals, and this was all paper format. This was before the internet. And I would have to go to this book in the library. I'd have to open it up to some key terms. And under those key terms, there would be an index of papers that have been published using those key terms. Then that would give me the citation. I'd have to write that down. Then I'd have to physically go in the library to where the journal was located, pull that issue of the journal, flip through it, find the right volume, find the right number and the right page number for the journal, open it up, and then I'd find the paper, and then I'd go make a copy of it. Along the way, often I would find the wrong journal, or I'd open up another journal, or I'd find another interesting journal name, or I'd open up a journal and I'd find another interesting paper, and I would often, very often, become sidetracked finding all sorts of papers. And that was sort of a fun way to spend an afternoon, a day in the library, just going through, flipping through pages and pages of journals, and then spending a lot of money on making copies, which is always a lot of fun. So it started in cash and coin, and then they advanced to copy cards, but I go down a different path and tell you other stories. So the nice thing is you don't have to go to the paper version anymore, and you can do what I did physically. You can do that now on do it electronically, and you can do very much the same things that I did physically, but now you can do electronically in terms of finding other papers related to the one that you just found. And I'm going to show you that so that you can start parsing papers, finding the papers, reading the papers, and so forth. And don't forget to go watch the video on critical review of primary sources, because you do need to understand how the papers are organized to be able to get the most out of reading them. Okay, so just like any search engine, I come up with this here, and again, there's all different search engines that you can use: Scopus, PubMed. You can even search on Google Scholar, but I use Medline, Web of Science, partly out of habit and partly because I know how it behaves in finding different things. So here's the search engine, and obviously I've done some searching in here recently on energy cost or metabolic cost, biking, breath holding, working with a circ artist on some breath holding work, and we were looking for some research related to that. And we would just put that in here. So if I just do let's just use energy cost, and I'm using quotations because then it will find those two words together in a paper. And I can select where I want the search engine to search, either as a topic, I could make it as a title. I could even put in author, not that this would be an author name, but then I can put an author name in there. Publication name, year published. I can narrow it down that way, but I'm going to just leave it broad and use this as a topic. I can also add additional rows, and maybe I want to do energy cost of running. All right. And then I can add other rows too if I want to, or maybe I want to find something where it has a specific term in a title. Sometimes I know the title of a paper or some of the words in the title, and I want to find that paper, and I'll just search on that. All right, so I'm going to hit search, and then the search engine does what it does, and it brings back a number of citations. Let me move my window here, and it's listing 41 here. Here's the results, 408 results. So clearly I can't go through all those. So I might want to narrow them down. Maybe I want some contemporary work, or maybe I want to look for some older work, maybe something back in the 90s or 80s even. And I can narrow the search down if I'm looking for classic literature or more contemporary research. Maybe I want to narrow it down to humans. There's 308 of these articles were for humans. Or maybe there's other headings that I can try to narrow it down, and so forth. There's ways to streamline this down. Sometimes what I do though is I start looking through these and I start looking for titles that I think are interesting. So running economy and effort after cycling, effective methodological choices. Oh, I didn't prep this ahead of time. That actually sounds interesting related to triathlon. So it looks like it has something to do with running economy, which we know, or you will know, is how a rate of oxygen consumption for running a particular speed. And effort, that seems like something related to RPE after cycling. So this is at least a duathlon, maybe a triathlon. Effective methodological choices. So maybe the method of doing the run or the cycle is going to influence something there. So I'm going to click on that. And now I have some specific information for this paper. I've got the journal it was published in, volume, number, issue, and page information, document information. This is just a specific number to the manuscript. When it was published, I can say, oh, this is 2020. This is really current, May 2020. So that was just published, and it was a journal article. Sometimes the category here will tell you whether or not this is a primary source. So if it says a literature review, that's something that you may want to read, but you won't use it in the end for one of your citations for your final project, your semester project. So now I can read through the abstract, and you can see how it highlighted the keywords that I searched for prior to exercise, what have you. And I look at this and I say, oh, maybe this looks pretty interesting. So one thing I can do is if I think that's going to be interesting, I can go find text. So up here at the top left. And the good thing is our library is really well connected with journals, and the vast majority of the times I can find an electronic version, electronic copy of the paper. Now, when I'm working at home, I am logged in via VPN, and that gives me access to the library, and you may need to do something like that with the library. Okay, so here's the paper, check holdings. I'm not seeing it right away here for the paper. No full text available. All right, so now I have to go a different route to try to find this paper. I actually have direct access to that journal via membership. So, but that's interesting. I thought UNLV did have access to this, and it does not. So I'm actually going to go back, and I'm going to say, okay, well, I can't get access to this right now. Maybe I need to request access, get a paper sent to me, or maybe I want to look at some of the other papers related to this. So this paper is new, so it wasn't cited, so 0 times cited. But this Web of Science will also tell me how many citations this paper included, and I can click on that, and then all of these will come up. And my computer's running a little slow. So now I have all the citations that were included in that paper. Role of rating or perceived exertion during self-paced exercise. What are we actually measuring? That seems interesting. And I can start looking at the titles, and sometimes I look at the authors, and maybe I want to go and find one of these papers. So let's look on running economy beyond the measurement of oxygen consumption. This sounds like a lit review. And okay, so now I've got the title, I've got the journal information, and if it's a lit review, it will not describe an experiment, but now the purpose of this study was to compare running economy across 3 submaximal speeds expressed at both oxygen cost and the energy recovered to cover a given distance. We'll talk about both of these parameters. This is running economy, and this is energetic cost of locomotion. All right, so this is actually an experiment. So this is a primary source peer-reviewed paper in the Journal of Applied Physiology. All right, so let's try again and see if I can get full text. I can go full text from publisher, or I'm gonna do UNLV find full text, and let's, fingers crossed that I can get a paper this time. Full text available. I'm gonna click on that. It's just giving me some options. I'll just click on the first one. And what I'm looking for is a PDF. Right, so now I have I do have the access to the paper. I have the full article in HTML on the web page, and that's great. But if I want the paper, I've got to click on the PDF. I got to download the PDF, and I highly encourage you to create a folder for your journals and label it, you know, KIN 457 or KIN 456, whichever class you're in, and then start compiling the papers. Save the papers and save the paper by author last name. So Fletcher et al. And then the year 2009. That will get you in the habit of citing authors and citing peer-reviewed work. But now I have the PDF. I can go through the whole PDF. I could print it if I want to, obviously save it, and I can start evaluating whether or not this paper will be helpful for me, either as a supporting document or maybe one of my key documents that I want to use in my final semester project. And so there's some figures and what have you, and then some additional references. So all PDF. But let's say, I don't know, maybe that's not the right one for me. Let me go back to my Web of Science. Oh, look at this. Now I've got a paper that's been cited 120 times. That means this is a pretty important paper. If there's that many citations, this means that other people are referencing this work and talking about this work. So now I can click on that. And now this will tell me how many papers going forward in time that have referenced the paper that we were just looking at. And so now I've got running economy and effort after. So, oh, that looks like the paper we just looked at. Anthropometry of economical running. So it has something to do with body size, modeling effects of curves on distance running. These all seem really interesting. And I'm just sitting here tempted to start clicking on them and reading them. And this is the rabbit hole that you go down when you start doing literature searches. And the real litmus test, if you've got an interesting topic for yourself, is if you sit here and you start finding yourself clicking on paper after paper after paper. And every paper that you do look at and you read, I do encourage you to get the PDF, save it so that you can go back and look at it again. And then you can start cataloging them. Ultimately, for your final project, your semester project, you'll pick specific references to talk about in your semester project. All right, but this is just a process of going through and searching for papers that you would find interesting and that will be appropriate for your semester project. And again, this is just using Web of Science. There's all different other search engines that you may be exposed to. Any search engine is fine to use. You do not need to use Web of Science. One is not necessarily better than the other. Okay, that's a little introduction on how to search for papers. Thanks, everybody.